In this video, I'm going to show you how I'm going to extend my rafters between the two columns so that I can have the jasmine uh, crawl up some structure that I'm going to build up, and so that it can actually then hopefully one day cover the area between the columns. So I plan on basically extending each one of these rafters out about 2'10" or 3 feet. I'm going to attach them to the bottom side of each rafter, and as I do the work, I'll show you the exact detail of how I'm going to be extending them out. But primarily, I'm going to be using 2x4 redwoods to extend. The current rafters are recessed about 1.5 inches in underneath the soffit of the water spout here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 2x2 spacer in between the extension and the existing rafters. I will nail through them using a T-bolt, a head bolt, sorry, and then basically along the length of them to provide lateral stability. I'm gonna tie in each extension using a 2x2 about 11 feet long, so that everything works in together. When I come to the columns, I'm gonna put a 2x4 across between the two rafter extensions, and then somehow come up with a another 2x4 slice. So here is the kind of rough drawing that I've done. So this is my existing rafter, this is my new rafter, this is the space that I'm talking to you about. That was a 2x2 that's going to be installed. This is this 2x2 piece. This is my rafter that extends beyond this point. I'm going to do some edge treatment on there. It's going to be, like I said, made out of redwood. And then I'll put some type of a finish on the outside. And then that's basically it. In elevation view, this is what it looks like. I've got 6 rafters to extend. I'm going to add a 2x4 between 2 rafters on the end, so that whatever extension that I can think of to do vertically, I'm going to tie into that 2x4. So for now, the plan is to get this set up at minimum and then figure out a way or a pattern that I like to create the ladder on which the jasmine can actually crawl up. So I'm going to get started by cutting the wood. I've figured out all of the angles. The rafters are angled at approximately 23 degrees. That's all I need. Based off of that, I'm going to go ahead and then make my cuts as needed. So let me get started, and I'll show you the things along my way. So here's the setup. I've got a compound miter saw that I'm going to go ahead and use to cut the piece of wood. I've got the extensions on here, and that's good to go. You just want to make sure the piece of wood is flat while you're cutting it. This is the profile that we are looking for. This is the portion that's going to be on the outside. This is the portion that meets up against the house. I will then basically put a 2x2 spacer in here. It's going to be cut off at the same angle as this is, and then I will basically use those head screws that I told you about that will just simply bolt screw through here. So I'm going to pre-drill these holes, pre-drill a hole in the 2x2, and the head screw that I have will only engage in the existing rafter. So the shank that goes through here will not be threaded. So that's it basically. As for the setup to go ahead to go ahead and get this thing cut. The other thing I am going to do here is, as you can see, when you end up cutting edges, they end up being very sharp. So we will use an 1/8 inch rounding bit afterwards that I will then go ahead and round all corners of every single piece that I cut. I'm going to do the edges no matter what, even on the existing pieces. That's about it. So I'm going to get ahead and started cutting all of the rafter extensions. Okay, so here are my rafter extensions. They're pretty much cut, as you can see. The next step is to simply go ahead and route the edges. I'm going to use a handheld router. I'm using a 1/4 inch rounding bit on the end. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this. In the meantime, while my son does the routing, I'm going to go ahead and cut the 2x2 spacers that are going to go in between this new extension and the existing rafter. So on to the next step. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut out. I've got the infill pieces. I've notched the end of the infill pieces so that it can go up against the house. Sanded this down. I've got the long stringers that we're going to go on top of the 2x4. They're cut as well. I've got the edges cut, routed. This is all done. And I've got my stringer extensions ready as well. I have made a different decision on how I'm going to fasten the rafter extensions to my existing rafters. So I will show that to you later in the video. But for now, the next step is simply to go ahead and start applying the finish. Before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a wet cloth and wipe it down so that there's no sawdust left on it. And then I'm going to start applying the finish to one side and then to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and I'll show you what my setup looks like. Okay, so I've got the items sanded, and now I'm starting to apply the finish to it. And so what we're using here is the product by Sickens. It's the Cetol SRD. RE is for California, it just means lower emissions. I'm using the Redwood 89, and here are the pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and get at least one coat on here, and then let it dry, and then get another coat on there in the next day or so. So I'm going to get all my pieces finished off, and then I'm going to install them one piece at a time. Okay, I've got all the pieces painted, finished. I've applied one coat of the finish that I wanted. Those are the filler pieces right there in the middle, the small 2x2s. Here we have the 2x4 rafter extensions, and here we have the 2x2 bars that are going to go across the top once I'm done. And I'm going to let it sit overnight and then apply a second coat tomorrow, and then we should be ready till next weekend to go ahead and install them. So this is what the final installation looks like. You can see that's what it looks like on the end. I've got the top extension hanging out. The installation, as you can see, is right underneath the existing rafters. I've used timber lock. That's what you see, those two black dots. Those are timber lock 6-inch long bolts that I've used to install into the bottom of the rafters. On the end here, as you can see, I've had to offset. Let me see if I can get this. I've had to offset it from the existing rafter just because the downspout was in the way, so I had to push it out further. And for that, I added a 2x4 to the top of it to horizontally offset it. I just used deck screws to install that one. Um, Here is a close-up of the one that's underneath the existing rafter. So I ended up screwing the infill piece to the bottom and then used timber lock to screw from here into the upper two pieces of wood. You do need to keep in mind, there I have a full 2x2 filler. Here, since that rafter's angle must have been different, I ended up having to thin up the fill piece. On top, this is what the deck screw is. Ended up screwing it in at all those locations. It's very sturdy right now. And that's what it looks like from the top view. Let me get back down. So that's basically it. There you have it. This is what it looks like from inside. And hopefully I will add some vertical members along here and along this column so that my jasmine can follow those up and hopefully onto the trellis one day. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope this has been helpful. This kind of gives you an idea of what you could do to add to make the front of your house look different. This is from a different angle. It's hard to notice off the street, but when you do walk up to it, you do notice that it does add a touch to the house. Well, thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I can help answer any of your questions. Thank you for watching.